Everybody, welcome to episode 103 of the Apples and Genos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. My name is Josh Hutchinson. I've got John Binkle with me here as usual today. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. Valentine's was really good to me. My mom came into town. She got me a new sweater, got me a throwback Forsberg. My wife made me a steak dinner and took me to the Bruins game against the Stars last night. She was a little bit shocked when I went to put on the Pooh Bear Bruin. She was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I never get to wear this." Like, I'm sort of rooting for them. Yeah, why not? So
Oh,
I'm
that's
good, man. It
funny.
was a good holiday for me. Do you guys do Valentine's up
Oh yeah,
north?
we do. Oh, we definitely celebrate Valentine's. My Valentine's Day consisted of coming home from my night shift late because my relief called in sick, and taking a quick nap, driving to Kingston for a doctor's appointment, and then coming home and going to bed again. Essentially, that was it was not not the most romantic Valentine's
Glamorous,
Day in the
yeah.
world, that's for sure. Yeah.
I
Uh,
got really lucky. My wife was like, "Do you have anything planned?" And I was like, "Oh no, I've like totally failed you as a partner." And she was like, "Oh well, that's good. I have dinner planned." So, I made sure to show up with flowers and chocolate and card and etc. So I didn't risk my life over it, but it was good. I had a good time. It seemed like the holiday was mostly for me this year, so I'll chalk it
that's
up as a
awesome.
win.
Glad to hear it, man. That's good. That's good. Well, thanks again for leaving us a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you haven't and you're enjoying our content, please just take a second, leave us a review. We would greatly appreciate it. Also, check out the Apples and Genos Discord server. It's a great place to talk fantasy hockey, get your questions answered, and also receive alerts for when new Apples and Genos content drops. And actually, before we jump into it, I was going to ask you, how's your PS5?
Oh, it's amazing. So I haven't bought a new console in years, right? Like I didn't even buy an updated Xbox. Like I still am just playing a regular Xbox One. And I bought another Xbox One before buying anything new.
Sure.
And I just didn't realize like how old my gaming systems were until playing this PS5 where I'm just like looking at the screen like this is beautiful.
Yeah,
And
man.
the game is ridiculously fun. So my character's name in Hogwarts is Gary Porter, and
Nice.
I'm earnestly having a lot of fun playing it. Like I was talking about before, I don't have any time to play it, so I like try and fit it in late at night. And it's
Yeah.
I mean, naturally, but it's such a cinematic game that there's a lot of downtime while you're playing, you're also watching. And I'm playing it late at night, and I find myself
Nodding off.
nodding off and being like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I'm too old to be up late playing video games right now. Like I have to like do the smart thing and turn it off." So
Before I went to straight nights, I used to do the same thing. It was essentially when my wife would fall asleep, I would turn on the PS5 and start playing games, and I would do the same thing. I would like start nodding off, like literally. Sometimes even like in active gameplay, I would just like start. My head would start bobbing. I'm like, this is a problem.
yeah.
But yeah, no, the PS5 is great. It's that processing speed is it's a game changer. I know when I had an Xbox One as well, and also a PS4 at different times. And the difference in processing speed going from last gen to this gen is insane. There's like no load times. It's
No,
unbelievable.
it's kind of ridiculous, especially
Yeah,
considering like how in depth and expansive it is.
yeah.
Like I literally, without the help of drugs, was looking at a relic wall, and I was just like admiring the texture of the stone on the wall. I was like, I was like,
Yeah,
I'm so far past being a spring chicken at this point where I'm like looking at the gradient on the wall, like, man, this is really impressive. Like,
it's good, man. It's when you've played so many generations of video games, it's like you appreciate the technology so much more. These kids these days, they don't appreciate what they got. They never had to play 2D Mario Brothers with
oh,
a controller with 4 buttons. You
yeah.
know?
I was telling you
Yeah.
recently that I got that Nintendo 64 Ken Griffey Jr. game. And
Hmm.
I plugged it in for nostalgia's sake and played a game, but it was like
It's pretty bad.
I was like, what was I like? It was like it was well before the turn of the century. I was like, this is amazing. This is the height of technology. And I look back at it
Yeah,
now
it
and
was, man.
I'm
It
like, this
was.
is drawn in crayon. Like, this is
I tried
terrible.
I tried replaying Mario 64 within the last couple of years, and it's tough, man. Like that the controls on that game are broken. Like I used to think that was the best game of all time, and like playing it, it's like this is you you die just due to technical glitches all the time. Like it's crazy. You don't have control. It's wild.
That's another character voice that I've been able to do. I don't remember if I showed you guys that during the draft, but that's another one that I can do really well.
Well, you could do it right now if you want.
It's a me, a Mario.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's good. They should have
Here
hired
we
you instead
go.
of Chris Pratt for the movie.
Man, I have seen the videos, the trailers for that, and I hate to jump off the rails, but I don't watch a lot of trailers for movies like
Yeah,
repeatedly, and I have
it looks
watched the
dope.
trailers for those repeatedly. Like I'm
It looks
so
good, man.
unbelievably excited about those.
Yeah,
And Seth Rogen is as Donkey Kong. Like,
Donkey Kong. Yeah,
come
yeah.
on.
Jack
I'm
Black
so
is
stoked.
Bowser. Got Charlie Day as Luigi. It's good. It's an all star cast. It's good shit. I'm
I'm
excited for that.
I'm entirely too excited about that movie.
All right, let's talk some hockey. If you didn't already know, this is Midweek Moves. It's Wednesday, February 15th, and we're talking about schedule maximization and who you should be adding and dropping at this point. So, the schedule between Thursday and Sunday this week, there are 4 teams with 3 games and 2 off nights, and those teams are the Columbus Blue Jackets, New Jersey Devils, Nashville Predators, and St. Louis Blues. So, if you can find streamers off those teams, it's probably the most ideal situation. Chicago, Edmonton, Minnesota, Ottawa, and Winnipeg all have 2 games, but they're both on off nights, so those are also pretty good options. Next week, both Winnipeg and the Islanders have 4 games with 4 off nights. So that's interesting with Winnipeg because they have that good schedule. I mean, their next 6 games are on off nights between the end of this week and all of next week. So that's if you can find a streamer on Winnipeg, they're pretty top heavy, that team.
I was gonna say I
But
really wanted to lean on that in my ad options, but there's
yeah,
just nowhere to go
there's not a
that
lot
isn't
unless
echoing Cole Perfetti for the 100th time, right? Like,
Blake Wheeler is kind of like hovering around the 50% mark. So if he's available, that he's definitely a good option for the next week and a half. But other than that, yeah, it's pretty dry. And then there are, next week as well, there's 12 teams that have 4 games. So lots of games being played. 7 of those teams have 2 off nights. Yeah. So, if you stream someone from there for the end of the week, keep them. Streaming crop is thin. I would be if Blake Wheeler's there, get him. Other than that, I don't know what to tell you in terms of I guess in terms of this guy that I'm about to talk about for my must add. It is Andre Palat from the New Jersey Devils. They, again, like I mentioned, have 3 games with 2 off nights for the end of the week. He is 39% rostered. He's playing on the top line right now with Jesper Bratt and Heishier. It's kind of a roided up top line for New Jersey. They're not usually doing that just because essentially Jack Hughes is hurt right now, so they've had to load up that top line. He's also playing on PP1. He has 6 points in his last 4 games, which is actually almost half of his point totals for the entire year. But he has 11 points in his last 11 games as well. His rate stats in terms of shot generation and scoring chance generation are actually pretty bad. He's not really a guy that shoots the puck a ton historically. He's kind of like a high efficiency guy, but a guy that has had success playing with highly skilled players high in the lineup. He played with Kucherov and he played with Kucherov most of the year last year, and had some success there. He only has 5 shots over his last 4 games. So yeah, again, shot rate's not super great, but he does hit. So there is a little more value there. But yeah, as long as he has this deployment, I would probably be picking him up if he's available.
well, I mean, you you know that I'm just down as a Palat supporter, right? I had been tracking this as an eventual outcome. I didn't make any assumptions about injury causing that to happen. I just kind of thought the cream would rise to the top in this case. Um, but yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Like, it's a trustworthy player playing with the best talent who has a track record of playing well with the best talent on a team. So I think there's every reason to believe that'll continue, and furtherance to that point, I think it will continue when Hughes comes back to a certain extent.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. For their sake, I think they've invested quite a bit in Andre Palat. So, um, yeah, he's got a long term contract there. So you hope that he meshes well and stays high in the lineup. Who do you have for an ad?
Well, I really considered Sharon Govich, but I didn't really want to double dip on the Devils, even though
Sure.
in the last game against Columbus yesterday, the time on ice for the forward line for Sharon Govich, Holla, and Zetterlund was almost double that of Palat, Heischer, and Bratt, right? So I think it's a viable ad. I have been burned every time that I've gone to the well with Sharon Govich, and the same
Same.
thing for Mercer, right? So
Yeah.
I'm so hesitant to make that a suggestion. I don't think that's a wrong call to make, but it's never worked out for me, and I'm just not a fan of it, right? I'm way more behind my gut on Palat than I am the other players for New Jersey. So I went with a different excellent situation that has shifted recently, and I went with Ryan Hartman, 28% rostered, center and right wing eligible. He is line one, he is PK one. At the moment, he is power play two, right? But they, of course, stock up their power play one. So if it works out for him as an offensive threat, if they gel again, it wouldn't shock me to see him move to that power play one. Um, of late, 18 minutes average time on ice. With that said, he missed 17 minutes with a penalty versus New Jersey with a triple penalty in one call, right? So
Yeah, that's crazy.
9 shots on goal in the last four, even though, as we mentioned on a recent pod, like he said he was going to try and ease into it and stay out of the way. So that's been true and not true game to game. What is most noteworthy for me about him recently, he took that 17-minute penalty that negated a power play against New Jersey, but he took it because Bastian delivered a nasty high hit on Kirill Kaprizov and got
Mm.
full support from Dean Evason, even though that penalty resulted in Tatar scoring and them taking the lead, right? So through all of that, Ryan Hartman would return to the game, score to tie the game in a real just ugly goal in front of the net, before the Wild eventually prevailed in a shootout. And after it, Dean was really effusive, saying, "We liked the way we held our composure for sure." And he was directly talking about Hartman, right? So you're talking about we held our composure when a player that you were taking a chance on took a 17-minute penalty in a tight game against, a top of the East team. And Hartman said, that's a character win. We're going to try and keep it going. Right. So even through those things that have kind of given me pause in supporting Hartman and trusting that he's going to stick to this top line, the coach is behind him. He's behind him, and he's clearly behind. Like, immediately he went to go to bat for Kirill, and that's exactly what you want when you're trying to get a line to gel like that, right? When they've been struggling. So it's more about situation and schedule. There's a Friday and Sunday finish for them this week. Next week, they've got 4 games with 2 off nights. So the schedule is excellent. The position is excellent for him. The possibility of him going to the power play and being a hold for a while is certainly good. It's better than not, I think. And I'm not entirely sold on what Hartman has shown thus far, but it doesn't feel like they have a lot else to go to. And they are a really offensively talented team if they can get things to work. And he certainly feels like the linchpin in doing that.
Yeah, for sure. I think I meant to mention that when I was talking about the schedule in terms of Minnesota, they had that 4 games, 4 off nights week. And this week, and then next week they have the 4 games with 2 off nights. So I mean, you're gonna have a hard time streaming Minnesota Wild players at this point just because their schedule's been so good. And again, they're another team that's pretty top heavy, so there's not a lot of really nice options. But Ryan Hartman is a guy that is still available in a lot of leagues, so I'd definitely be looking into that. But yeah, like you said, I think the energy behind those post game interviews and just the fact that he was taking penalties to stick up for someone throwing a dirty hit on their best player. That I mean, that's yeah. I mean, that puts him in pretty good favor with the coach, like you said. So I think that his spot is probably safe, at least for the time being. It seems like the energy is good there. The juju's good in Minnesota. So I definitely support a Hartman stream, and I have streamed him in one or two leagues myself. So if he's there, go and grab him. In terms of drops, my drop for right now is Andrei Kuzmenko, who's still 47% rostered. He is playing currently on line 3 with Dakota Joshua and Sheldon Dries or Dries. I'm not even sure how to say his name. I'd never heard of him before this season. So, I mean, that says something
Sheldon.
about him. He's been demoted to power play 2. His ice time since Tocchet has taken over, he's averaged 14-22, which is a decrease. He was averaging 15-16 minutes a game with Bruce Boudreau. He has averaged even less than that since the Horvat trade with Anthony Beauvillier coming over and playing top line, top power play. It's gone down to 13-49. So Vancouver has just 1 game left this week, and then they only have 3 next week, and none of these games are on off nights. So it's unfortunate for Kuzmenko because he's a great player, but he just doesn't seem to have the favor of Rick Tocchet right now. So I would be dropping Kuzmenko. He's almost a non-option at this point.
It seems kind of ridiculous to me that they would lock him up and then move him further and further down the lineup, right? Like the production is just so good, but it's essentially points league production. So if you're working in categories, you've probably already made that move. And with such ugly deployment recently and no real reason to think that that's going to change, right? The coach is implementing the system. It's only going to go in the direction that it's going in, and the schedule being, not great. It is an unfortunate must drop, but it feels like it's unfortunate in name only and not really in situation or in schedule perspectives. Like, it's one of those players where you look at your roster and you're like, I can't drop this dude. And then you look at the upcoming schedule and you look how it's been going over the last few games and you're just like, oh, well, never mind.
I'm going to have to. Yeah. So who are you dropping this week, Binksy?
So for my drop this week, I'm looking directly at you. And I take it with a grain of salt. I know that this is a streaming player, but hey, you're rostering them. So I'm talking to you right now. My drop for this week is David Perron. He's a right wing Red Wing at 47%. He's working evenly distributed line 3 time, Jonathan Berggren and Veleno. Somehow he's maintained the gunner spot on power play 1, even though he's only got 23 shots on goal in the last 13 games. He's got 2 games remaining this week, the second leg of a back-to-back tomorrow versus Calgary, and then Seattle on a packed Saturday, right? So you don't like the prospectus for how he's going to play tomorrow, and probably not going to crack your starting lineup on Saturday. And as for next week, 3 games, no off nights, 2 of the 3 against very high competition, and the third being the opener against the Capitals. So, take that how you want to. Who knows whether they'll have Ovechkin or not. But in general, a pretty tough slate for next week on a bad schedule. And in the last month, 5 points on 20 shots on goal. He's ranked 267 in that period in our We Call Ourselves Experts League, where you're rostering him as a streamer. And I got to know, were the 2 apples enough to convince you of anything? Did it feel good?
Well, here's what happened. Okay, so he had a Monday, Wednesday schedule So 2 off nights to start off the week. The Red Wings have a pretty good going into the week. They had a pretty good schedule. 4 games, I think, 3 off nights. So I was looking at their team. There were a number of other teams with 4 games, but I didn't really like the players that were available on those teams. David Perron, like he said, has been keeping power play 1. So for me, essentially it was a hunch and then the fact that he played on Monday and then also Wednesday, I was kind of like, well, if he's not doing anything after Monday and Wednesday, I'll just drop him and move on to somebody else that has a better schedule later in the week. So that was my strategy there. So
That
far
was my
hasn't really
hope.
worked out.
That was my
Yeah.
real hope. I saw the ad and I'm like, that can't be a hold, but at nearly
No.
50%,
No,
maybe,
not planning on holding him. No, no. It was just trying to take advantage of that early in the week schedule for Detroit. So I'm still kind of evaluating. We'll see how he does against Edmonton tonight, and then I'll make a decision tomorrow on what I do with David Perron. But I get it. I definitely support a drop, especially after when does he play again? You said Thursday and Saturday, or Friday and
Uh,
Saturday? I don't know. I can't remember, but
so yeah,
um,
second leg of a back-to-back tomorrow and then
right.
Saturday. Yeah,
Okay.
so
Okay.
Thursday and
Gotcha.
Saturday.
Yeah. So I will definitely be reevaluating depending on how things go tonight in Edmonton. But yeah, no, I get it. I definitely support that drop if that's what you want to do at this point. All right. Let's talk about some hot topics around the
Okay,
league.
let's hit it.
What do you got for me, Binksy?
So we're going to start out with the injuries and move into some of the trade rumors.
Yeah.
Updates on injuries. Jake DeBrusk was a full participant in Monday's practice and is expected to be back against Nashville on Thursday. He's been out since January 2nd. In reviewing some of the fancy stats, his individual scoring chances for over the last 20 games, pretty damn high. So worth noting. Kyler Yamamoto is almost back from an injury that kept him sidelined since January 11th. To activate Yamamoto off of long-term IR, the Oilers either need to make a trade or put someone on waivers to open up cap space. So he is ready, but they are not. So I think we're waiting until the deadline probably to see him. We'll see about that and how the Lions have any space for him to do so when he comes back in. They seem to keep trying with him, even though it never really seems to work out. The hot topic of the injury corner for the last month or so, Anthony Duclair was a full participant in Monday's practice,
Hey.
taking contacts for the first time, baby. He isn't expected to play on the team's current road trip, but might return just after the trip, and that would be February 20th against Anaheim. So
Yeah.
kind of an easy game to come back in and lay the wood a little bit, I guess.
For sure. And Florida has been turning things around lately. They're
Yeah.
right back in the mix for a playoff spot. So I think they lost to St. Louis though last night, which
They
is
are still
unfortunate.
giving up
But
a ton of shots game in and
yeah.
game out. So
Was
that's
it Spencer Knight that had the start there? I think it was.
I don't
Because
know.
Bobrovsky has been really strong lately.
I will say this. I did see a post on Twitter that I thought was probably the coolest thing I'd ever seen for a goalie, and it's that he had uh, children in the local hospital there do the drawings for his goalie mask.
Who's that? Spencer
Spencer
Knight?
Knight, yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's the I don't know if and when he'll wear that. They didn't get to that in the post, but the mask that he has, and it's made, there are photos of it, are just of like children's drawings with crayon, which is
That's cool.
amazing. I love it so much. Cale Makar and Philip Forsberg are both day-to-day after taking hits to the head in recent games. Cale Makar took the hit directly to the head. Philip Forsberg took the hit and hit his head on the ice. And considering the massive hit up high on Kaprizov, I'm wondering, and I wonder how you feel about it, with hits to Makar and Forsberg and Kaprizov, and before the break, Matty Beniers, where they're all taking just ridiculous hits and then having head trauma. do you think the league is going to tighten up on hits right now? Like, do you feel like they're going to like immediately aggressively react to that with reffing?
No, man, they don't give a fuck. The NHL doesn't care. They've proven for years now that they don't give a shit about head trauma. So I
Yeah, but
do not
to their
expect. And there's
stars though, I guess they don't know how to promote stars
Sidney
either.
Crosby had concussion issues for multiple years in a row. At a point where he was the best player, undisputed best player in the league, and they did shit all about that. So I I I have no faith in the NHL to do anything correctly in
That is a
terms of
very
keeping their
valid
players
point.
safe.
Yeah.
And in terms of calls on the ice, you don't know how the game is going to be called on a day to day, on a night to night basis, on a game to game basis. Like, it's completely different every night. So
Okay. I have to take this opportunity right now. And it's the only thing I'll say about it as an Eagle fan watching the Super Bowl. It was a holding call.
yeah,
He did hold him,
yeah,
but both teams had been holding all night long
yeah.
defensively, and
I
they
feel that, man.
barely made a call.
Yeah,
And they made the Super Bowl defining call on what looked like a ticky tack call to me and
yeah.
to NFL veterans and all pros and Hall of Famers. So I thought it was absolutely a holding, but it was a terrible call still.
It reminded me so much of I Feel Your Pain, because I don't know if you remember in Game 7 with the Leafs and Lightning last year, John Tavares had a goal called back because Justin Hall set a pick, and
I do remember that. Yeah.
it was like kind of like it was a play that happens every night essentially in the league and never gets called, and it's like, yes, it is a penalty, but that never gets called. And they weren't calling anything in that game. They weren't calling anything in Game 7, and then all of a sudden that was a penalty, and and that was the difference in the game. That was the difference in the game. Would have been tied, would have gone to overtime, and then who knows what would have happened there. So I feel that, man. I feel your pain. Sorry, I know I'm not really an Eagles fan at all. I'm a Cowboys fan, so like we're kind of rivals in that way. But
That's all right.
that hurts. It's not a good way to end the season.
I'm not gonna cry about it. I got consolation hugs from everybody, and I was like, I'm not even really that upset, honestly. Like, we won a Super Bowl in 2017. That was good enough for me. Just to get one was good enough, and it was a really good game. But yeah, I had to get it out on broadcast. Like, that was absolutely holding, but it was a terrible call still.
Yeah.
Back to hockey.
All
Jack
right.
Hughes has moved from day to day to week with the upper body injury. He was on the ice for Wednesday's practice, but wasn't taking contact. So it has escalated in terms of designation, but he does appear to be okay. And for your boys, as of tonight, AM 34, Austin Matthews is back on the ice with the Leafs.
Yeah, buddy. He's got a couple points tonight, too. Scored a goal in the first period. He's looking good, looking strong. It's against the Blackhawks, but, he's I'm excited. I'm excited for the end of this season and this home stretch here. Excited. Hopefully he gets a little more scoring luck than he had earlier in the year, because he's and in terms of Austin Matthews standards, hasn't really had a year in terms of counting stats to be super excited about. So, but still, regular season doesn't matter. I was gonna talk about some trade rumors, but I think maybe we'll just jump into the Zero G check-in, because there's not a whole lot of substance in trade rumors, other than, I guess, I don't know if you heard this. Okay, now I'm just jumping into trade rumors. I'm not. I said I wasn't going to, and now I am.
It's that
But
time of year, you can't help yourself.
I believe it was Elliot Friedman that tweeted that Patrick Kane has said that he will waive his no move clause for only the Rangers or the Leafs, which I thought was very interesting.
I did too.
Because I guess him and Matthews have a really good relationship, and they've wanted to play together for a long time.
Why did they have a really good relationship? Because they're American?
Patrick Kane, I think so. Yeah, I think Matthews grew up watching Kane, and was he idolized Patrick Kane, and I think Kane, I mean, recognizes that Matthews is awesome,
Okay.
and there's a mutual respect there. So I think they've had some back and forth, and I remember there was a game early in Matthews' career where they kind of chirped each other back and forth. Matthews scored a goal. It was in Chicago to give the Leafs the lead late in the game, and he like put his hand up to his ear to the Chicago crowd, and then like a minute later, Kane scored to tie it, and he did it back. It was pretty great. But there's clearly a mutual respect there, and supposedly they want to play together. There was a quote saying they were from Kane that he was disappointed he wasn't going to be able to play with Matthews when they kiboshed the NHL players going to the Olympics last year. So yeah, I mean that doesn't mean a deal's going to happen, but I imagine at this point the trade value in terms of for Patrick Kane is probably at its lowest. So I mean,
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see what would happen if he gets put on a team with people to play with. So yeah, it's I just thought that was interesting. I don't know if I don't know if that is my number one trade target for the Leafs right now, but it certainly would be cool.
I feel like the Leafs will probably end up with some defensemen, right? Maybe Gavrikov moves across the Great Lakes from Columbus. I know he got a healthy scratch for trade related reasons.
Yeah.
So that's certainly possible. I'm a little bit more excited about like the second and third level of trade rumors about where Barbashev is likely to end up, where
Yeah.
Gavrikov
Mm-hmm.
is likely to end up. I guess Chikrin's probably a level above that, but where Chikrin
Yep.
will end up and
Certainly.
all of the smoke but no fire in those exact terms about him going to the Kings. So the Kings just got 3 forwards back off of injury. If they could add Chikrin to that team and I don't know, get a goalie.
Yeah.
if Copley became a real boy and they got a goalie, they could be a really dominant team in the West, considering the state of the West right now. So
you got to wonder if there's a deal where they could maybe get Karl Vejmelka out of Arizona and for some sort of, and then maybe somehow get Quick going back the other way. I don't think they're going to do that just because Jonathan Quick is such a fixture in LA. I don't think they're going to do that, but I think if they were smart, they would figure something out because Arizona can take on whatever salary they want. Like they have so much space, and yeah, so like I don't know. I feel like there's something there because obviously Quick wouldn't be able to be on the roster anymore if they were to get Vejmelka and have him in a tandem with Copley. But
you just assume there's no way that they're gonna do Quick like that, right? Like there's
yeah, no, I don't
way.
think it's gonna happen. I think that's what they
In the
should
same
do.
year where they like lifted Brown on their shoulders and had him lift the cup. Like, there's no way they're gonna do that and then just kick Quick.
They're building Dustin Brown a statue. That's wild. I mean, Dustin Brown, great player, but
are they really building him a statue?
That's shocking. Yes, man. They're retiring his jersey and building him a statue.
All right,
Isn't that insane?
They're retiring his jersey. I could see. Like, there's a lot of players in franchises, especially ones that go on a cup run. Like, you get your jersey retired, but a statue in Los Angeles?
Crazy.
Like, who else has a statue in Los Angeles? Come on. Like, that's what? No.
Yeah, man. Right next to Kobe Bryant. Dustin Brown.
And Magic.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what the hell is that? Anyways, yeah. That's very, very strange. All right, let's talk about some 0G goalies here. We'll just do this quick. Philip Gustafson is 50% rostered. He has started 2 straight. I think Fleury is starting tonight, but
Yeah.
before tonight, he had started 2 straight and 3 of the last 4 since the All-Star break. He came in relief of Fleury in that 4th game that he did not start, and he has a 944 save percentage over those last 4 games. All 3 starts were quality starts, so above 900 save percentage. And Minnesota has that nice schedule that we talked about for the next little while. So Philip Gustafson, definitely a guy. If he's still on your waiver wire, he's going to get some starts coming up. So definitely watch how Fleury does tonight, because I think if Fleury has a tough go, I could see a run for Gustafson coming up. So yeah, definitely an option if you're looking for a goalie. Tristan Jarry is supposedly getting real close. That's a quote, which is unfortunate for Casey DeSmith, because he's actually been really strong since the All-Star break. He has 3 wins in 4 games with a 937 save percentage. And Pittsburgh has been giving up a lot defensively, but he's been standing tall. And making stops. Like, they've been giving up 40, 35 shots, and he's played really well. So, but yeah, his time as a starter, it seems like it's limited. So if you've been riding Casey DeSmith, I don't know how many people have been,
I hope not.
but I would be starting to think about moving off of him, unfortunately. And Aiden Hill is now up to 47% rostered and is the starter for the time being in Vegas, with Thompson out week to week. He has a 935 in 3 appearances since the All-Star break. Vegas won all 3 games. The only question is, will Brossoit start getting starts here and there to give Hill a break? I know they were kind of doing 2 starts on for Thompson, 1 start off, where Hill would start for most of the season. Not sure what they're going to do there, if they're just going to ride Hill or move off of him and give Brossoit a couple starts here and there. But I think Hill is a great option right now, because Vegas has been playing a little bit better. I think their opponents haven't been quite as strong, but
True.
He's at the very least going to get starts. Capo Kakinen, who is 6% rostered, started 3 straight games out of the All-Star break and had a 933 save percentage in those games. But unfortunately, he's gone down with an injury. It doesn't seem to be serious, but he missed the game last night. Apparently, the Sharks right now have 4 goalies on their active roster. Reimer and Kakinen are both injured, so they have Aaron Dell and Makiniemi, I can't remember his first name, that are dressing right now. Reimer is at UFA at the end of the year. He hasn't had a strong year, but there is some question as to whether or not he's going to get dealt. Obviously, the injury issues are probably not helping their case in terms of getting anything back for Reimer. But if he gets dealt and Kakinen comes back healthy, he's going to be the starter there. So I don't know if I'm interested, but I would just keep an eye on that San Jose situation, because they also have been playing better hockey lately. So keep an eye on San Jose and their goalie situation for sure.
It's really tough to call because they're both day to day with very different reasons, right? Reimer has an illness, and Kakinen has a head injury, right? So you don't really know. Like, they're both supposed to be available for Thursday's game against Vegas, but who knows why, and who knows if that comes to fruition for either one of them.
Yeah. Philip Grubauer, who is 20% rostered, has started 3 of 4 for Seattle since the All-Star break and has a 917 in those games. Seattle's kind of struggled a bit, more offensively than in goal. But Grubauer's been strong. Martin Jones has gone ice cold again the last little while, so they're kind of moving, shifting their trust over to Philip Grubauer. So he's a guy that I would be considering looking at, because Seattle still is a pretty good team. They're going to be winning games, and he's starting. I mean, I don't know if he's starting to figure it out, but the last few games he's been serviceable.
I got the impression from Nate's waiver wire analysis through the patrons, $5 a month for those of you listening, that he is kind of believing the hype on Grubauer at this point. That the state of the team and the state of the Tendy duo and how he has been playing as of late is giving him more confidence. And I don't necessarily trust Grubauer, but I trust Nate.
For the Kraken's sake, I hope so, because they have a lot invested in Grubauer, and he's been essentially a lemon up until this point. So it's not good at all. So hopefully he is turning it around. And then in Ottawa, Kevin Mandolese, their AHL goaltender, stopped 46 of 48 in a win against the New York Islanders in his first NHL game. So what a performance from him. Mads Sogard also had a strong start against the Calgary Flames, where the Sens came back and won 4-3. So TSN 1200 reported on Saturday that Talbot should be ready within the next 2 weeks. So these two may be playing a bit for the time being over the next couple of weeks. So I would be taking a look at these guys because they've been pretty strong with Forsberg and Talbot out. But I think Sogard, I think they're probably favoring Sogard in terms of starts, but I mean, so far it's been evenly split. So yeah, keep an eye on. I mean, these are probably more spot start candidates, but definitely some names to at least keep an eye on for sure.
I mean, it wouldn't shock me if Talbot was sitting on your waiver wire, and he has been skating. So
yeah,
we'll see how long 2 weeks actually is with them playing two AHL goalies. So.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right, let's get into the mailbag. So Fantasy Hockey Professor, I don't know if this has been announced publicly, but Fantasy Hockey Professor has actually joined the Apples and Chinos team, the content team. He's going to be writing articles on the website, so definitely keep an eye out for that. I don't know that there's one out yet, but yeah, keep an eye out, Fantasy Hockey Professor. We're happy to have you. And he's got a question here. He says, if your team has clinched a playoff spot, how are you folks balancing trying to win your current week versus trying to build a stronger team for your playoff runs? I'm interested in your thoughts and perspectives. Thanks. So for me, it depends on your league settings. So if you are pushing for if you're within reach of getting a first round bye, like say you have 6 teams that make the playoffs and the top 2 teams get a bye through the first week, I'd probably be pushing to get that first round bye, because then you have those 4 extra moves in that week to prepare for the next week. And then I mean that's huge. That's kind of a game changer, and really sets you up really nicely for the semifinals. So I would say if you're within reach of the first or second spots, or like a first round bye, I'd be focusing on the week to week. But I mean, you can never really go wrong making a deal, especially with the trade deadline coming up, for someone with a drastically better schedule, and making a deal with someone that is trying to take advantage of a team that is clamoring to get into a playoff spot. So, but yeah, I guess if you've clinched, yeah, it really depends on where you are there. If it doesn't seem like you're within reach of a first round bye, I would be, but you've clinched, I would be fully focused on trying to improve your team and maximize schedule. What do you think, Binksy? Is that
you
do you have
took
any other
the
opinions?
exact words out of my mouth in order. Like you said exactly my thoughts on it.
There you go.
If you have a shot at a bye, play for that bye. And if you don't realistically have a shot for that bye, if it's an outside chance, then give up the fight and try and streamline your team for your playoff weeks. And that's the long and the short of it. That's a perfect answer.
All right. A41 asks, right now I'm in playoffs in all my leagues. I'm only making moves to better my chances for first week of the playoffs. Nothing matters to me anymore. I guess that was an answer to the Fantasy Hockey Professor. So thank you, A41. Love that comment. Nate asks, what's the key to generating more Corsi for from the blue line in my beer league?
I got this.
You got this?
You ready?
Okay.
All right. Well, considering that all shots account in Corsi 4, and you're not talking about Corsi, which would, of course, account for Corsi against, right? Then, Nate, the key for you getting more Corsi 4 from the blue line in your league is just clappers, baby. Just get on the ice and just clap up a storm. I want to hear a standing ovation when you are on the blue line. Okay. Your
Yeah, man.
Corsi 4 will go through the roof. You might not win. You might not have teammates that like you. You might not have anyone on the ice that likes you. Your
But
sticks
you
might
didn't
not even
ask
like you.
that.
You didn't ask that. You said, how do you generate more Corsi 4? You get on the ice and you start booming them at pads and shin pads. Okay. That's how you do it.
I was going to say the exact same thing. Just fire the puck as soon as you get across the blue line. You fired at the
Just
net.
do it.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if it gets blocked. It fucking counts. You're gonna have that. Your shot rates are probably gonna be like your individual Corsi 4 per 60 will be like 40, and then your scoring chances for will be like 1. But that's not what you asked, man. So
It's not.
so there's your answer. I did want to highlight there was someone that made a comment on that.
That was
Oh yeah,
great.
Kyer says the answer is more beer, and then he followed that up by saying, "Little known fact: Corsi is a direct function of the consumption of beer, and defined as CF equals BCSI, where CF is Corsi 4, BC is beers consumed, and SI is individual skill level. You can make up for lesser skill level by increasing beers consumed. As you can see, as BC approaches 0, Corsi also approaches 0. Since BC equals CF divided by SI, if we have exactly 1 beer, our Corsi output matches our skill. But but with each consecutive beer, we increase our Corsi output by a factor of 1 compared to our individual skill. It's complicated, but a time-proven formula. I
That's
thought that was
science.
great.
That's just science.
That's just science.
So,
I love that.
you know what is a fun fact about Corsi 4? The origin of the name behind it. And
What's that? Tell me about that.
I've got 20 seconds for this, because you'd be like, sure,
Yeah.
it's some sort of like shorthand, or it was somebody's name, or etc. Right? And I'm gonna directly read this blurb. Okay. The Corsi number was named by Tim Barnes, a financial analyst from Chicago working under the pseudonym Vic Ferrari. He had heard
Vic
former
Ferrari.
Buffalo Sabres general manager Darcy Regier talking about shot differential on the radio, and then proceeded to develop a formula to accurately display shot differential. Ferrari originally wanted to name it the Regier number, but he didn't think it sounded right. He then considered it calling the Ruff number after former Buffalo Sabres head coach Lindy Ruff, but he didn't think that was appropriate either. Ferrari ended up searching Buffalo Sabres staff, found a picture of Jim Corsi, and chose his name because he liked Corsi's mustache.
That's amazing. I did not know that.
Now, I have no idea if that is actually true, but that is exactly what it says on Wikipedia, and I'm buying it.
I'm going to believe that for sure. All right. The Mark Skinner asks, for the playoff weeks, is the best strategy to prioritize off nights over that time frame? Wondering because I'm having to decide on rostering someone like Evan Rodriguez, for example, who has 8 off nights over someone like Boldy or Vinny Tro. Thanks again for making my midweek extra special. So I think this season, and I assume you're talking about weeks 22 to 24, which I mean Mark Skinner. I'm against Mark Skinner right now in we call ourselves experts league. They're our keep 3, and it's I think our playoff weeks are 22 to 24 in that league.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, they
are. The off night situation for Colorado, there's such a disparity between them and all the other teams. They have so many more off nights. And I believe they have 11 games total over that time. And there's only one team that has more, and that's Boston. It's just 12. So in my opinion, absolutely you prioritize guys like Evan Rodriguez. That's the problem though is with Rodriguez is I don't know where he's going to be in the lineup if Landeskog comes back.
Yeah,
we're not
or
sure
if
there.
Michushkin stays healthy for a determinable amount of time, or even if Lehkonen takes off, right? Like he has the propensity to do, right? Erod is one of those dudes who kind of plays his role and plays it well, and also happens to play the same role all over the lineup, right? First
Yeah.
line, he's doing what he does on third line. First power play, he's doing what he does on second power play. Like it's hard to say with Rodriguez in particular, but for that tier of players that everyone wants to know about, how to feel about, for Colorado, being Evan Rodriguez, Lehkonen, and JT Comfort to an extent, right?
Mhm.
It's pretty clear that currently it's Rodriguez, Lehkonen, Comfort, and in the future, our best guess is that it will be Lehkonen based on just positions when they're healthy, right? When
Yeah.
Landeskog is back, when Nichushkin is in full swing, it will be Lehkonen and Rodriguez and then Comfer. But as we've seen, the Avalanche do not have the ability to stay healthy this year as a roster. And who knows what that's going to look like come playoff time, right? So
Yeah.
just right now, Rodriguez looks like the best option, especially if you're leaning on him for what he does well, which is shots on goal, right? Boldy is also giving you that. Trocheck, not so much, and a little bit less so since the trade, but it's, I don't know that you prioritize off nights as much as you do off nights and what that player does for you in your format, right? So if you're in a categories league, you're going to want a player who does a little bit more. Maybe that line between Trocheck and Rodriguez is a little bit tighter. If it's, purely a category that you're looking for, or it's purely a points league where you're looking for shots on goal and points, then it gets a little bit tighter as well. It's, for me, the line of demarcation there would be going to that playoff week in your lineup and seeing exactly what fits now and what wouldn't fit, right? It's
Mhm.
go specifically to your team and see what fits and doesn't fit in the playoffs instead of
Mhm.
looking at it in a league wide setting. Go specifically to your team as it stands right now and mentally note that what will and won't work for you come that playoff week.
Yep, totally agree with that. 100%. Yeah, set those lineups, go like jump ahead to those weeks, set the lineups, see which guys are bubble guys and that are probably not going to be rostered. And if it is an advantage to have an Everett Rodriguez as opposed to someone that's maybe more skilled or maybe gets a little more ice time, but is playing on a lot of heavy nights, then yeah, I absolutely go for Rodriguez. Um, and then our last question is from Zebra Dan. It's been a couple weeks since we let the people know how you're doing in Tier 6. It's been a tough go playing 500 hockey and bouncing in and out of a playoff spot. You're currently out, but a win this week would put you back in 6th spot, which is in a playoff spot. Our trade deadline is next week. Who's your deadline target that will catapult you into the playoffs and beyond? Let's hash out a deal live on the podcast. So the problem is in this league right now, we have 3 scoring periods left. Our playoffs actually start, I think, on March 6th, which is pretty early. So it's actually the playoffs actually go from weeks 21 to 24 because the finals are it is a 2-week scoring period in this league. So there's not really a lot of time for a trade to make a big difference. Like I
Wait,
don't think.
you're telling
Sorry,
me that there are 3 weeks left in
3 weeks. Yeah,
Cupful before the playoffs, and
not in
the
Couple.
ah,
Couple. I believe there are 3 weeks after this scoring period that we're currently in. There are 3 weeks left, and
ah,
then but in the 5-hole league that I'm in
okay,
this week, there are 2 weeks after this week.
gotcha.
So it's there's not a lot of time.
So
In other words,
when does the deadline hit
the
then?
deadline is
Next week?
next Wednesday for 5-hole,
So you got the deadline and then 2 weeks before the
and then a
playoff?
week and a half.
I
Yeah, a week
love
and a half.
that. That's
Yeah,
awesome. That's
yeah,
such
man.
a great setting. I hate it when the deadline comes early in fantasy sports. I'm like, "What? what difference does that make? Like I've always been a proponent of just letting trades happen all the way up until the playoffs. Like
Yeah.
it never made sense to me.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I don't think that there's a deal to be made that will catapult me to the top at this point. I mean, I took a look at the schedule. Oh man, in terms of maximizing schedule, but like I gotta get into the playoffs, right? And that's the key. Is I'm right on the bubble. There are 4 teams that are, I believe, 9-8, and they're all tied for 5th. And I am 8-9 in 8th place. I alone in 8th place. But yeah, like Zebra Dan said, I believe the 9 and 8 teams are all playing each other. So if I were to win, and I have the 5th most amount of points in the league. That's the other thing that's frustrating. It's just unfortunate matchups. And then just a really slow start at the start of the year, injuries, buy low candidates, all of these different things. It's just kind of it's kind of unlucky. And then also just miscalculating my 0G strategy as well, in terms of the league settings. Yeah, I don't know that there's a deal to be made that's going to put me over the top. I mean, obviously, guys, if anyone in that league is wanting to make a deal, send me some trade offers, but there's nothing that I'm targeting right now that I think is going to be the difference between me making the playoffs and not. But
Where is Zebra Dan in the standings?
Zebra Dan is first.
Oh, okay.
Zebra Dan is
I was like, is that
killing everybody.
collusion? Are they just getting smashed and they're like, who do you
No,
want?
no, no,
I'll help you
no,
get
no,
in.
no, no. If that were, yeah, that would be funny. Zach, oh, here we go. I got a comment here. Zach Burden says, "Blow up your team for McDavid."
Yeah,
I don't
do
know
it.
if I want to do that. My team, I feel like I did pretty well. I had the 12th pick, so I had the turn, which was really nice. And got, I believe, Pasternak and Kyle Connor with my first 2
Nice.
picks, and
Not
that
so
turned out
bad.
really well for
Yeah,
me.
not
So
so bad.
I don't hate my team. I do legitimately like my team. I think it's a team that could, I mean, could do well. It just hasn't gone well.
I feel that same
And
way about my cupful team actually, which is
yeah,
if not in dead last, in almost last. I am indeed 13th out of 14, and it is a very strong team. Like I look up and down that roster, and I'm like, I really don't understand how I continue to lose week in and week out, but I do.
yeah, yeah. I like, and then I looked at the schedule over those 4 weeks, and there's not a ton of disparity in terms of, even with off nights. There's only Philly has the worst schedule, 13 games with 1 off night, but everyone else has like tons of off nights here. Anaheim is 7, Buffalo is 8, Colorado 8, St. Louis 5, Minnesota 6. Like even the teams that don't play as many games have a ton of off nights. So it's like I just don't, and a lot of my players have tons of games. So I don't think that there's really a scenario where I'm making this team better for a playoff run. I just have to get in. So I think for me, it's just gonna be like nailing my streams, and winning all 3 weeks. That's, which is easier said than done. It's just
Mhm.
I'm kind of, at this point I'm kind of, it's just gonna be, I gotta get lucky, essentially. I'm gonna use all of my educated, I don't know, a bunch of educated guesses in terms of streams, and then just hope for the best. But this is the only this is the only league where I'm in danger of not making the playoffs, and it's really pissing me off. uh, oh well. Thanks for the question, Zero Dan. Do you have anything else here, Binksy? Anything else to add?
Oh man, I just want to give a shout out to Reese's Pieces. We are in a matchup right now in the we call ourselves Experts League. That will not entirely decide who makes the last playoff spot, but we'll have a huge influence on it. So, good luck to you, Reese's, and also I hope your team dies in a fire.
You've turned your season around in that league, man. You were struggling out of the gate, and you are right back in it. You're in a playoff spot.
I told you, man, the buy low candidates.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. All right. I think that's all we got for today. Check out the Apples and Ginos Discord server. Shout outs to the band there for providing our music. Their Spotify link is in the episode description. Give us a rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Twitter. Binksy is at Binklemania. Nate is at Apples Ginos. Blake is at Blake Creamer SE. And I'm at Just Josh and 41. Please practice safe stats and happy streaming. Have a good one, folks.
Good night, world.
Look at that. We're under an hour, buddy.
We did
All
it.
right. See you guys.